Hi, my name's Jennifer. Welcome back to my channel. Now that it is April, I thought I would do a little reading check-in on my reading so far this year, having a look at my reading stats and checking in on the goals that I set myself at the start of the year. I will link my Storygraph down below. So far this year I have read a total of 38 books. I think that's probably slightly less than what I had read at this point last year, but I haven't set myself a numerical reading goal this year, and I am expecting to read fewer books than I did last year anyway. So I've read 38 books so far, and I've also DNF'd 21 books so far, so that works out at a DNF rate of 35%, which does seem quite high. I don't know what my normal DNF rate is because I only started recording DNFs properly when I moved over to Storygraph. I would guess my normal DNF rate probably is around maybe 25%, but that's just a pure guess. So 35% does seem quite high, but that's fine. In terms of the books that I have read, these are the moods of the books I've read. So they have, for the most part, been reflective, emotional, mysterious, dark, and tense. I think that's fairly standard for my reading tastes. Pace-wise, yeah, 50% medium-paced, 35% slow-paced, 14% fast-paced. I think that's, again, fairly normal. In terms of the page numbers, so most books that I read, about half the books I read are between 300 and 499 pages. I guess that's about average. 8% of the books I've read are over 500 pages, which equates to 3 books over 500 pages. One of them's a book of Japanese short stories. So then The Sea to Sea, that was over 500 pages, and then Out by Natsuo Kirino as well was over 500 pages. In terms of genres, this is quite interesting. So my top read genre for the year so far is mystery. No surprises there. Followed by literary, which I'm not entirely comfortable with as a genre term, but anyway. Followed by classics. So that's unusual because I don't really read a lot of classics, although one of my goals was to read more classics. So according to this, I've read 8 classics so far. Now 2 of those classics are Agatha Christie rereads. And so books on Storygraph can fall into more than one category or genre. So I'm not saying that Agatha Christie shouldn't come under classics because of course it is classic crime fiction. But for the purposes of what we would normally call classics, that means I've read 6 classics, which were The Tenant of Wildfell Hall, White Sargasso Sea, The Sea, Passing, The Bell by Iris Murdoch, and Morris by Ian Forster. So I'm doing quite good with my classics reading so far this year. I think I read most of those in January actually. And then my next most read genres are LGBTQ, and then historical, and then crime and thriller. So that's interesting because historically I've read more crime and thriller. I think I'm reading less of that just because I'm more aware of other books that are out there with being part of BookTube now. In terms of my most read authors, well, according to Storygraph, my 2 most read authors for the year so far are Agatha Christie and Iris Murdoch with 3 books each, but I've only read 2 Agatha Christies. It's saying there's 3 because I read a book which included a foreword by Agatha Christie, but it wasn't written by Agatha Christie, so that's wrong. So yeah, Iris Murdoch is my most read author of the year so far. I've read 2 novels and 1 short story by Iris Murdoch. And then star ratings. So my average rating so far this year is 3.29. That is normally around where my average rating comes out at, so that's fine. I have had 2 5-star books so far this year, so Detransition Baby and Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield, and then I've had 2 4.5, which were Morris by Ian Forster and The Passing Playbook, which is a YA novel by Isaac Fitzsimmons. So those 4 books, my 2 5-stars and my 2 4.5 stars, are all queer books, which is interesting. I've only given 1 book 1 star so far. That was Out by Natsuo Kirino, which is a Japanese crime novel, which I really did not like very much at all. In terms of the goals that I set myself at the start of the year, as I said, I didn't set myself a numerical goal because I don't think that's very helpful for me, but I did set myself some sort of aims in terms of some reading that I wanted to make time for this year. So the first of those was rereading. I think I've only reread 2 books so far this year, and they were both Agatha Christie's. The books that I mentioned I wanted to reread, I haven't read any of them yet, so I want to reread all of Sarah Waters' books. That's probably what I'm going to head to next. I'll probably pick up a Sarah Waters next from this reread list. I want to reread Down and Out in Paris and London, Picture of Dorian Gray and Piranesi. There'll probably be more rereads that I think of as they occur to me. The other category of books I wanted to focus on was longer books because I tend to put them off. And out of that list, I think the only one I've read so far this year is The Sea by Iris Murdoch. Other books on that list that I want to get to are Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. I really need to get to that one soon. The Unconsoled by Kazuo Ishiguro. The Luminaries by Eleanor Catton. The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco. And Ducks Newburyport by Lucy Ellmann. So there's quite a few there that I'm still to get to. And then I did do myself a little list of classics that I'd be interested in heading to this year. This is the one that I've probably done the best at so far. So I wanted to read, the ones I've read so far that were on my list were The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte and Morris by E.M. Forster. Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf was also on my list, but I actually DNF'd it. I'm quite interested in trying Orlando maybe instead. And then the other classics that are on my list that I haven't got to yet were Villette by Charlotte Bronte, Tess the D'Urbervilles, Emma, Crime and Punishment, which does intimidate me and I'm not sure I'm going to get to it anytime soon. And also Dracula, which I'm thinking I'll probably save Dracula until spooky season. And then my other goal, so I wanted to take part in Jen the Librarian's LGBTQ books and translation read along. I have read 1 book so far for that, which was The Membranes, which I very much enjoyed. And then I also mentioned wanting to read some book prize long or short lists. So obviously the Women's Prize long list has been announced. I am working my way through reading the books on the long list that I can get my hands on from the library. So far I think I've DNF'd a quarter of the long list, and I think I've read maybe another quarter, and I've got a few more. I think I've got 3 more that I know I can get from the library. A couple of them are there, one's on the way to me. I am going to do a separate video, I think, about my DNFs of the year so far, because I think I've only mentioned maybe 2 of them in my wrap-up videos. I don't tend to mention them as a matter of course, but I will do a video about my DNFs because actually there's 2 or 3 on there which I'm quite surprised that I DNF'd, and you might be surprised as well. So I'll do a video on that very soon. In terms of where I want my reading to go, what I'm planning on doing and what I really need to do is stop ordering library books for a period of time, because my library ordering has been a little bit out of control. I go every week and I always have a steady stream of books that I've ordered. I do a lot of pre-ordering from the library, so when book is coming out and the library has it on order, I will try to be the first in the queue, because there is something very pleasing about being the first person to read a library book. And so this top shelf here, the front of this top shelf, is all my library books that I have not yet read. I picked up a few of those this morning, and I think I've still got not that many, maybe 6 or 7 on order, which I think possibly new releases or new to paperback releases. So my intention is to try to go for maybe a month without ordering any more library books. Well, okay, I say that. So the reason I want to do that is to make time for some of these goals. So most of these books on this list I don't own. So it is okay for me to get these out of the library because I want to focus on reading some of these. But the other thing I really want to do is read some of the books that I own that I've had for like a year or more and just not read. So most of this shelf here is my TBR. That's my Anne of Green Gables collection, which I've read most of, but actually not all of. But yeah, these are all to be read. There's a shelf down there, there's a unit over there, and there's books in piles over here that I haven't yet read. Generally what I do is when a space becomes available here, then a book will make its way to the sort of immediate TBR shelf, if you like. So yes, that's what I'm going to try and do, to sort of make time to do some of that and stop having my head turned by all these new releases. So there we go. Right, I'll stop waffling. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know how your reading has gone for the year so far, and I'll speak to you all again very soon. Bye.